We are live. We are live. Welcome to college football's peek around the corner with your host, Greg Pflugar. We cover everything in college football because we love everything in college football. And if you do as well, please subscribe to our channel. Smash the like button if you like our content. Share the video with your family and friends. Do not forget to ring the notification bell. You don't know when we're coming on live next. I don't know when we're coming on live next. You got to get notified. Make sure you ring the bell. If you want to support this independent national college football's rebel outpost with a donation to help us keep the lights on and grow the channel, just hit that $sign where you make your comment, and I will get to your super chat as quick as I possibly can. Welcome everybody into the studio that sits on the corner, the very corner of Keith Jackson Parkway and Kurt Gowdy Avenue. Do not be afraid. Do not be afraid to become a legend with your comments and with your phone calls. It is another beautiful day, Wednesday, August 26th, to talk some college football. Yesterday, if you missed it, go check out our live show. We made our picks. We made our selections. The PATC Einsteins and yours truly, soon to be Greg the Gold. Greg the Gold's got TCU, USC, North Carolina State, North Dakota State, Stanford, New Mexico State, and Memphis to cover the spread in week 0. Now the PATC Einsteins You've all got TCU, San Jose State, North Carolina State, North Dakota State, Stanford, New Mexico State, and you got UNLV. So we differ on the San Jose State USC game, and we differ on the UNLV Memphis football game. I'm going to go 5-2. I guess there's a decent shot you guys will finish above 500. So anyway, we're all gonna find out together this Saturday, starting week 0 in college football. What a beautiful day Saturday is gonna be. What a beautiful, beautiful day. Sankey versus Kiffin. The battle on the Bayou. I think this is going to be the first of many, many, many battles. This one happens to be the battle on the Bayou. I think at some point we're going to have the battle at Columbus. We're going to have the battle in Miami. We're going to have the battle in many different places. The battle in Austin. Because we are going closer and closer and closer to these conferences going into the silos and making their own decisions on 3, 4, 5 most important items in running a conference. This one happens to be front and center. This one happens to be dramatic. This one happens to be the battle over can players who played in the NFL, who did not get an option to come back and play college football for a 5th year, can they come back to college? This one's, there's a lot of consensus built in the Big Ten, SEC. It looks like in the ACC, it looks like in the Big 12, that these conferences do not want this to happen. They're creating the rules and they're publishing their penalties. We're going to go through that in a moment here. And we're going to talk about the battle on the Bayou. But I think there's a larger story that is brewing here. I got this voice in my head that is going. I don't know if any of you can hear that voice, but I can hear it. I'll give you an example. I'm going to give you a big example. Here's Mohr After Dark, right? He comes in with this $5 holla. Mohr, Greg is so cold that the chickens in Minnesota run to KFC and demand to be put in the pressure cooker. That's terrible. That's... that's terrible. But Thank you for your generosity, Mohr. Thank you for being a friend. I very much appreciate it, sir. But again, you are showing your desperation. Because you know you've only got a few more days left. Because after Saturday, when I'm sitting here at 5-2, 6-1, the cold jokes are going to disappear. And if they don't disappear, I am going to ignore them because there's no credibility with them. We got today, Thursday, Friday, 4 more days left. But let me use Mohr as an example. Let me use Mohr after an example. The Big Ten. The Big Ten is going to try to figure out its cap. If the PCSA doesn't pass, if the conference decides on their eligibility, the transfer rules, and their cap, how are they going to decide on their cap? What is the total number they're going to decide on? I assume it's going to be one school, one vote. What if the top 7 Big Ten schools, the top 7 when it comes to money, availability of money to be spent on their football program, the 7 wealthiest Big Ten schools demand that the football cap is $65 million? And what if the other 9 Big Ten schools say the Big Ten football cap should be at $50 million? $65 million, $50 million. But we got 9 votes over here. We got 7 votes over here. This issue is different. All these issues are going to be different. LSU seems to be alone on this. But there are going to be other issues where schools are going to be alone or they're going to be in the minority and they're not going to like it. I get it. This is different. They're all different. This is different from Brendan Sorsby. But they're all going to be a little bit different. I'm just saying, today is the battle of the Bayou. The Big 12, when it came to Brendan Sorsby, used the Big 12 bylaw. They used their credibility as a conference to be able to suspend, not allow a player to play football when that player has knowingly and admitted that he bet on the sport that he wants to play. No brainer. The Big 12 had to come in and clean up after the NCAA because they have no credibility in the courts. And they had to lay it down. They had to lay it down, and Texas Tech Red Raiders had to acquiesce. This one, as of right now, when we're going live, LSU has not acquiesced. In fact, probably during this live show, we're probably going to get a report that LSU is going to come out firing because these players are going to sue. But at some point, I think we're going to look back on this a couple years from now, and we're going to say to ourselves, this probably is the battle that had to be done. It happens to be LSU. It could have been Georgia. It could have been Vanderbilt. It could have been Michigan. It could have been Miami. It could have been Clemson. At some point, you are going to be in the minority of your conference. And you're going to have to either take the loss when it comes to the voting within your conference, or what? You're going to have to sue your conference? Is LSU going to sue their conference? If LSU does play these, if LSU does play these players, will SEC enact the penalties on LSU that they have publicly reported? What the penalties are? We're going to go through that in a moment. And if LSU doesn't pay up, will the SEC sue LSU? Will they take away LSU's voting rights? You know, we talk about these silos. And we've been honest here at Peek Around the Corner. We've always said it would be difficult. It would be hard. And it might not work. It might blow up in everybody's faces. SEC, the Big Ten, and the other conferences might not be able to govern any better than the NCAA. They're probably going to have more success in the court. They are going to have more success in the courts. But are they still going to be able to govern? Because being able to govern successfully is really about schools following the rules without having to go to court. Governing successfully is really, it's not about winning a court case. It's not about threats. It just has to be imprinted into the conference. There is something we need to vote on. We vote, and it goes the majority way. And that's it. Now, again, this is more complicated because they're putting in a rule after the fact. All these are complicated. So we're going to go through it. I appreciate everybody coming on in. It is Wednesday, August 26th. We are so close. Evil Badger. I picked TCU, San Jose State, North Carolina State, North Dakota State, Hawaii, New Mexico, and UNLV. Thank you, Eva Badger. Thank you for the $5 holiday super chat. I do want to talk about one thing here in these games that I did not know yesterday. Evo Badger, thank you for the $5 holler. Appreciate it, sir. Thank you for your generosity, Moen. Evo Badger. Kenneth Maynard, we'll get to you in a moment. Kenneth Maynard, thank you so very much. I saw this. I saw this on Twitter, on X. John Gruden asked a guy on some show, asking why he took Virginia against North Carolina State. And the guy said, this is Virginia's offensive line. This is the Virginia Cavaliers' offensive line. Now, they did lose their starting center last year, who was all ACC first team. They did lose their best receivers. They lost the quarterback. They lost their best two running backs. We've talked about it. Virginia has lost a lot. They're bringing Bo Pibula. But this is what Virginia has. MBM in the chat room. Have an H-cap. Problem solved. Virginia Cavaliers offensive line going against North Carolina State. The left tackle, is a 5-year senior. The left guard is a 6-year senior. The center is a 7th-year senior. The right guard is a 6-year senior. The right tackle is a 7th-year senior. And the tight end is a 5th-year senior. So, Virginia Cavaliers have got a lot of grown men on that offensive line. 3 of them returning starters, although they did lose basically all their offensive weapons last year. And their offensive weapons last year wasn't all that great anyway. So, anyways, I just wanted to bring that up. I did not know the extent of the age gap between Virginia's offensive line and the North Carolina State's defensive line, something we're going to have to look forward to when we're doing that watch party. Kenneth Maynard, member for 17 months. You, my friend, Gator, Maynard, Cloak, and Dagger, thank you for becoming part of the family once again. Kenneth Maynard. Mr. Maynard says, now is the time for Sankey to drain the swamp. And I'm not talking about the one in Gainesville. We dodged a bullet with Kiffin. Go Gators. Now, I do like John Summerall. I thought he was a very good hire for the Gators. And I think they made a great decision on getting the offensive coordinator from Georgia Tech and Aaron Philo, QB2 from Georgia Tech last year. I think Florida has done a lot of great moves. And they were able to keep Jaden Baugh. But, however, if we're talking wins and losses, and a chance to win the SEC championship within the next couple of years, I think Lane Kiffin is the way to go. I do understand when people say that Lane Kiffin is great on Saturdays, but Sunday through Friday, woo! You got to ride that tiger. Lane Kiffin, he's doing all that he can to win football games as early as possible. We got to recognize something here. Before we talk about this story, we got to recognize something here. Even the original Minnesota moron like me, way up here north, nowhere close to Louisiana, even a moron like me understands that the state of Louisiana is all in. They're all in. To the point where the governor made the hire of Lane Kiffin. I mean, this is well beyond anything that we know. This is a different beast. And Kiffin knows all of that. Kiffin knows he's got to win. Orgeron won a national championship, and it did not take long for him to lose his position. Again, a lot of other things went into that. So Lane Kiffin is pushing the envelope. He's seen other teams do it. He saw Alabama basketball bring in a G League player. And there's other examples. That's why LSU, I think, brought in Bobby Wade again for basketball. And Lane Kiffin said it himself, we got to do it because we don't know if, basically somebody else would do it. But now that we know that the SEC has put in this rule and these penalties, nobody else is going to do it. Nobody else is going to do it. But is LSU going to continue to do it this time? Are they going to back off, or are they going to go forward? Let me show you guys something here. On today's reporting, sources told CBS Sports earlier this morning, the SEC finalized the following punishments for any program that tries to roster a player who previously signed a pro contract and or declared and didn't formally withdraw with the NFL, NBA, G League, or the WNBA per bylaw 4.4.3. Half-season suspension for head coaches. SEC voting privileges revoked on business matters for the school in violation of the rule. A hefty fine. 50% of that sports annual operating budget. The league retains the right to levy other penalties by Greg Sankey and or SEC presidents, chancellors, if necessary. Power brokers in the SEC, again, Matt Norlander, and similarly the Big Ten, are of the belief that the scope of a conference, as opposed to the antitrust nature of the NCAA cases, will allow this rule to withstand legal challenges because the penalties are directed at the coaches and programs, and again, not at the individual athletes. And then it was reported a little bit later on. Pete Thamel. Sources. In the formal SEC president's vote today to confirm the penalties in the legislation involving banning of NFL players, there ended up being a 15-0 vote. LSU abstained from voting. There was the initial vote of 16-0 on Tuesday. So we've gone to 16-0. Now we're at 15-0. LSU abstained. So as of right now, we do not have any information. Any information that LSU is backing off. We might get that during this live show. But right now, LSU is not backing off. Bruce Harris, winter is coming to Dollar from the Sooner. Thank you, Bruce Harris. I do very much appreciate it. Again, just like mowing, you've got 4 more days. 4 more days. And you're going to have to come in here, Bruce Harris, and call me Greg the Goal. Back to Evil Badger here. Evil Badger. TCU, that's going to be a win. San Jose State, that's going to be a loss. North Carolina State's going to be a win. North Dakota State's going to be a win. Hawaii's going to be a loss. New Mexico State's going to be a win. UNLV's going to be. So, Evil Badger, you're going 4-3. You're going 4-3. I do appreciate that, Evil Badger. I'm going at least 5-2. You're going 4-3. I'm probably going 7-0. Evil Badger, thank you for the $5 holler. I appreciate it. And again, Kenneth Maynard, appreciate you becoming a member for 17 months. Kenneth Maynard believes it's time for Sankey to drain the swamp. There is a part of me. Now look, LSU is one of the marquee brands in the SEC. They're unique. They're passionate. I mean, they own the state of Louisiana. The brand is gigantic. I think Sankey would rather probably have at some point this was going to happen in the SEC, and it's going to happen in the Big Ten. It's going to happen in the AC. It's going to happen. This is not going to be the only battle on the Bayou. There's going to be a battle on somewhere else within a conference. And it could be more factional. It could be 15 versus 4. Or not 15 versus 4. 15 versus 3. 10 versus 6. So I don't think the SEC wanted their battle to be against LSU. I think they'd be more comfortable like having a battle with Ole Miss, Vanderbilt, Mississippi State, Arkansas, maybe even a newbie like Oklahoma. I don't think they're particularly happy having a battle with LSU and the state of Louisiana. But at some point, they were going to have this battle over something. And this is probably something they think they can win in the courts. That's my take on it. We've got a very kind gift membership from the incredible, edible Bill G. Now, Bill G has not told me to quiet down on the Oklahoma State Cowboy hype lately. He has not put cold water on this. I'm starting to think that maybe Bill G believes in Greg the Gold. I think Bill G believes in Greg the Gold, but more importantly, I think he believes in Mestemaker. I believe he believes in Hawkins and Wyatt. I think he believes that offense is going to score more than 30 points a game. The excitement in Stillwater is building. I have not heard Bill G complain lately about the optimism, about PATC with his Cowboys. By the way, 5 gifted memberships to Jonathan Anderson, Nepalim, Leo, Quite Hungry, KSU Fan Man, and NSPR8586. When you get an opportunity, the 5 names I just read off, please say thank you to Bill G for his incredible generosity. All of you are officially knighted from the re-elected mayor of Louisville City. College football's cloak and dagger. Welcome to the family. Welcome to the family. You can watch all of our episodes, including early peak cloak and dagger episodes for members only. Thank you, Bill G. Appreciate it, sir. Very, very kind of you. Very kind of you. Thank you so very much for helping us keep the lights on. And we keep growing this channel. Once again, this channel has gone through a growth spurt. I don't quite understand when we hit the algorithm, when we don't. We're just going to keep talking college football, and we'll let the chips fall where they may. With all your support, we can do it every single day. I'm so humbled that you would join us every single day, or most of you join us at least a couple of days a week. I very much appreciate it. In college football is now beginning on Saturday. We're going to be doing a watch party. We got the scoreboard all lined up here. All lined up. UNC TCU. UNC TCU. Come join us Saturday morning, 11:30 a.m. Eastern Time, 10:30 Central Time. It's going to be a lot of fun. It's going to be a blast. I cannot wait. If it's a close game in the middle of the third quarter, we're going to be playing the mariachi music. Bo Pibula, CJ Bailey. Let's go. Let's go. Let's go. All fired up. Thank you, Bill G. Appreciate it. It gives us a clear picture moving forward either way. MBM, it is closing in. Tailgate season in Stilly is fire. Stillwater is full of excitement. We got Rod Nix. Oh boy. Rod Nix. 30 and a half points. 30 and a half. Woo! Now, I don't know if you saw yesterday's show, Rod Nix. I don't think that Florida State is going to cover. And I don't necessarily believe that is bad news for the Seminoles. Unlike Lincoln Riley, who I think is going to keep the gas pedal down in his football game this week, because he's got all those young freshman receivers, that Mosley, the Baumans. He's going to keep playing them in the third quarter, in the fourth quarter. He wants reps. He wants live action. They're going to keep pressing. They're going to keep going and going and going. They're not going to look at the scoreboard. They're going to have the foot down on the gas pedal. I think that's how Lincoln Riley is going to play this. But I don't think that is how... I don't think Mike Novell is going to do the same thing. If they're up by 28 points, a couple of minutes to go in the third quarter, and Cromie has had a few really impressive runs, I think they're going to bench him. If Deuce Robinson laid out for a touchdown, deep corner of the end zone, using his large frame, catching the touchdown pass from Ashton Daniels, I think they'll bench him. I don't think winning this game by 35 points, by 20 points, by 17 points. I think Mike Novell wants to win the game, keep his guys healthy, keep his guys fresh. They've got Alabama coming up and all these other games coming up. So I don't think Florida State's going to cover. I think this is one of the locks of the day on Saturday. I call it turtling up a bit. Get your win. Get your guys, a few impressive, get some positivity going, and then finish out the game. Get your 2s and 3s in there. Get it all done and get ready for the rest of the season. Let me know, Rod Nix, what you think, and the other Seminoles in the chat. Let me know how wrong I got it once again, but I don't think so. Booby Fista. Okay, I keep forgetting about Booby. I don't forget about Booby. But they got other guys. But you're right. There's a Antonuk. Well, they know what they got with, well, they sort of know what they got with Hines. Yeah, USC's got a lot of weapons. King Miller, they got a lot of weapons. I think they're just going to, I don't think they're going to pull back. So I think they're going to cover the spread. Rod Nix, I concur, Greg, at least for one weekend. The nose should be golden. Saw the show late, but you forgot the GTG Jam. No, I did play it at the very end. I played it at the very end when I showed my, this is when I play it. When I showed my picks at the very end of the live show, I did the jam. Yep. And hardly anybody in the chat liked it. But it had to be played. It had to, we got a purple and gold. Christopher Huda. $2 holla. Christopher Hooter, about the test conference rules theory in court. You are correct, Christopher Hooter. You are correct. But we're talking about testing conference rules in two different ways. The court, but also in practice. Is every school that finds themselves in the minority of the vote, are they going to go to court? Are they going to sue the conference? Are they going to support the student athletes that are suing the conference? Are they going to support the attorney general that is suing the conference? Are they going to support the lawyer that is suing the conference? Are they going to support the organization that is suing the conference? Or are they going to just tell the conference, we are a conference member, we lost the vote, and therefore the conference, we're going to go how the conference decides. So there's two different stories here. They have the court, the players are going to sue. Are they going to win? They're going to lose? We're going to find out. We're going to find out how much credibility the conference truly have in the courts. So far, they in the few examples that we've been given, the conferences seem to have a lot of support, a lot of credibility in the courts. But there's also this bigger, larger story. Can schools take the L when it comes to the votes within the conference? And that's why I started the show. New Life is absolutely very nice, Bill. Giving this channel is a fantastic gift. Thank you, Bill. Thank you, Bill G. The incredible, edible Bill G. Oklahoma State Cowboy. Thank you, Bill. But there's this larger story, like, you know, anytime you're at the losing end of a vote in your conference, are you going to rise up and say, nope, 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 nope? And are you going to battle your conference? This is just this is not even the first one, really. The Texas Tech Red Raider one with the Big 12 was basically the first one. And the Battle of the Bayou is not going to be the last one. It's going to happen with a major brand, major athletic department within the Big Ten. I don't know if it's going to be the Buckeyes first, the Michigan, Penn. It's going to be somebody. Something is not going to go their way within the conference. And they're going to be like, what the hell? Because they're going to be sure that they've got the right, they believe they are in the right. And it's not going to go their way. These conferences are going to be tested multiple times. over and over and over again. In my opinion. ED, BMD, if LSU made NIL deals with these former NFL players, and the deals I signed, are the players owed their money if they're not allowed to play? I think they are allowed. I think they would be. I think, well, I don't know. I don't know what the deals, who knows what the verbiage of these deals are. I think there is a chance that they would get paid their money. Because it is not their fault that they're not able to play. You know, it's not like they did not have the grades or they did something out of, you know, they did something criminal. A good question. Don't know the answer. I would imagine, though, I would imagine they would have to get paid. But, of course, I don't know that for sure. Jay Chapman, will LSU threaten to bolt the conference like Texas Tech did? I don't think Texas Tech ever really threatened to bolt the conference. We talked about it. We speculated on it. We talked about how difficult it would be. I don't think Texas Tech truly ever threatened to bolt the conference. Do I think LSU is going to threaten to bolt the conference? No, I don't. Nobody's going to leave the SEC voluntarily. But if anybody would in the Southeastern Conference over a rule, I would pick LSU as the one that would do it. Of all the 16 schools, I would pick LSU. And then Texas. Because, you know, it's LSU. I mean, they're going to do what they do. They are completely committed to the cause of LSU Tigers athletics and especially the football program. But I don't think they're going to do it. And I don't think Texas Tech truly did it. But let me know. Let me know if you agree or disagree on that. All right, we got some other breaking news. We got other breaking news that happened right before we came on live. Breaking news, breaking news, breaking news. Big Ten Conference announces the Big Ten Conference Council of Presidents and Chancellors have unanimously approved a 5-year contract extension for Commissioner Silent Tony Petitti. Approved a 5-year contract extension through June of 2033. What does that mean? What does that mean? It means 3 things. At least 3 things. Number 1, Tony Petitti is going to be the commissioner of the Big Ten. At least the presidents want him to be the commissioner of the Big Ten to do the next Big Ten media deal. He's going to be the one to negotiate it. Remember, Tony Petitti was not here, the Big Ten commissioner, to negotiate the previous Big Ten contract. But he did have to finish it up. He did have to clean up the mess that Kevin Warren left him. Tony Petitti is going to be the commissioner for the next media negotiations for the Big Ten. Second, Tony Petitti is going to be the commissioner of the Big Ten the next time the Big Ten expands. Remember, Tony Petitti's current contract, before he signed the extension, was until the end of 2028. I believe it was to the end, I believe it went to June 30th of 2029. But regardless, no matter what, next time Big Ten expands, we know for sure that Tony Petitti is going to be at the helm. Number 3, and maybe just as important as number 1 and number 2, Tony Petitti is going to be the Big Ten commissioner when the next iteration, whatever it looks like, the next college football playoff contract gets negotiated after this current one that ends in 2031. So Tony Petitti, he's been the commissioner of the Big Ten through all of these big changes. All of these big changes. He's going to be the commissioner through a lot more big changes. So Tony Petitti era is going to be one for the record books. Buckle up and brace for impact. Big, big, big news. All right. Jose says, the architect, it means Silent Tony has done his job. And done it really well despite folks saying he doesn't bark enough. He is the silent killer. Kenneth Maynard, not shocking at all. Battle of the Bayou. We're not going to go through the whole article. We're not going to go through the whole article. We're just going to go through some parts of it. Pat Forday, LSU Sports Illustrated, is testing the limits of college sports' new power structure. The power conferences are building their own system of governance on the fly amid efforts to add former pro players to college rosters. Now, before we get into this article, we all have to, come to the understanding that Pat Forday really loves Greg Sankey. And part of that may be because Greg Sankey is really good at cultivating relationships with the press. Greg Sankey gives the press a lot of access, and the press loves that. And naturally, you're going to gravitate to those who give you access to information. So I don't think there's anything really inherently evil about it. I'm just telling you that Pat Forday, in all of his writings, seems to have an affinity. He believes that Greg Sankey is pretty good. So have that in the back of your mind when you're reading this article from Pat Forday, Sports Illustrated. The self-governance plane, they're using our metaphors at Sports Illustrated. The self-governance plane is being built as the power conferences fly it. The thing might crash of its own accord. It might be shot down by lawyers firing surface-to-air antitrust missiles, but it has lurched off the ground, perhaps sooner than expected, with an urgent eligibility threat serving as the wind beneath its wings. This is what happened on a fascinating Tuesday in college sports amid efforts by multiple schools. One in particular, call it Loophole State University. Holy smokes. To add former professional athletes to the football and men's basketball rosters for the 25-26 season. The Big Ten leaders met and unanimously approved a new rule banning the schools from enrolling football underclassmen who had been through the NFL draft process. Players who had signed a pro contract and players who had been on a pro roster. And then the Southeastern Conference administrators met and adopted essentially the same rules, but expanded it to include the NBA and the WNBA players. The SEC vote was unanimous, 16-0. Sources tell Sports Illustrated, which might have been the most interesting development of the day given the one particular school's role in steering up this tumult. Meanwhile, Big 12 athletic directors met and are in favor of a similar conference legislation, with more meetings to come. Atlantic Coast Conference leaders have already scheduled meetings Wednesday morning, but would discuss similar rules and have the support to implement them, sources said. In a time of diminished NCAA authority and increased legal attacks on that authority, the biggest conferences are getting busy policing their own neighborhoods. It took a crisis to turn a long-discussed theory into action. But that's often the necessary trigger to spur cumbersome college athletic bureaucracies to move. Even for leaders with a high tolerance of flimflammery, the college sports eligibility crisis finally became too ridiculous to tolerate. Too many coaches trying to pull a fast one to bring in another star player. Too many schools willing to embarrass themselves by enabling the coach. Too many local judges pressing a thumbs down on the hometown side of the scales of justice. As one prominent college sports executive described to Sports Illustrated on Tuesday, this bleep is out of control. That's why this is happening. Both the SEC and the Big Ten have approved aggressive penalties for any school wishing to tempt fate. The SEC on Wednesday set parameters for a half-season suspension, that was today, of head coach, a fine equal to half their sports operating budget, and loss of league's voting privileges, with Commissioner Greg Sankey having latitude to lay on even more sanctions. Tuesday, the Big Ten drew a similarly hard line with a half-season coach suspension and 20% operating budget fine. Holy smokes. The conference moves feels like the dawn of a new era, and not one that involves them breaking away from each other has been prophesized, at least for now, to the contrary. This is an instance of conferences banding together behind a common aversion to the NFL, NBA dropouts coming back to play college ball. They're banding together unofficially, of course, lest collusion charges start flying. They will, soon enough. Thus, the summer of self-governance continues. The SEC leaders talked about it in May. Then the Big 12 became catalyst 2 months ago when 15/16 of the league rose up in opposition to Texas Tech Red Raiders attempt to play admitted gambler Brennan Sorsby this football season. That felt like the start of something at the time, and it was. And finally, in the article, with this power play by the power conferences stand up in court, that remains to be seen. Every conference has to do their own risk analysis, says a power conference administrator involved in Tuesday talks. You're going to have a lot of lawsuits. Absolutely. The lawsuits are going to become a flying. But I think this is where the SEC and the Big Ten want to have it fought out in the courts over this particular issue, because they think they can win this one. And if they win this one, maybe it will give them precedent to win other court cases involving conference-based rules and governance. The only way that these conferences can create rules is by a vote within the conference. And sometimes your school, I don't care what school you are, I don't care if you're Yogi Buck, Florida State, I don't care if you're Jose, USC, I don't care if you're Cal Bears, Golden Bears of California, I don't care if you're Rich Austin, Utah Utes. Your school is going to end up on the minority vote within a conference at some point. And you're going to end up on a minority vote on a subject that really means a lot to you. You think you're going to be in the right, but you don't have the votes. And how do you respond to that as a school? I think that's what this is all about as well. And I keep thinking, the conferences are going to take more of the decisions, rule-based in the conference, enforcement in the conference, on eligibility, which is this, transfer, which is this, and that one that I think is going to cause a lot of havoc is the cap. What's the number on the cap? Is there going to be the bird rule? Is there going to be a retention pool? How are you going to govern it? How are you going to enforce it? How are you going to watch over it? How are these schools going to, how transparent is it all going to be? And at some point, there are going to be factions within these conferences. There's always been factions within these conferences. But at some point, when it all trickles up to the NCAA and there is a ruling, then in theory, everybody abided by that ruling. But the NCAA did not have the ability to enforce the rules, to even look at what schools were doing, but within a conference, there is that ability. At least there's more of that ability. And are schools going to actually follow the rules? Are schools going to actually follow the rules that they don't agree with, but that is the conference rule? And they are part of the conference. And they have signed the bylaws to that conference. That is what we're all going to find out. Not just with LSU, but there's going to be another school, probably in another conference, or another school in the SEC, and we're going to be doing this all over again. All right, I'm going to get to your phone calls, your comments. You can talk about anything in college football that your heart desires when you give us a phone call. You can super chat. The floor is yours. The other comments I will pick and choose depending on how relative it is to the subject we're talking about, how interesting it is, how creative writing it is. I will pick and choose. I do want to thank everybody for joining us on this Wednesday, August 26th. Very humbled that you would join us for this live show. Sankey versus Kiffin, battle on the Bayou. I'm going to go ahead and do a poll here. Does LSU back down to the Southeastern Conference within the next 72 hours? Will they make some sort of comment? Will they say, okay, the players are still going to sue, they're going to do their own thing, but we as a school, we're not going to play anybody who violates the SEC rule? Will the LSU Tigers back down from the SEC within the next 72 hours? Ed Cook, CAP is currently governed by the House settlement for the next 9 years. Can't see how conferences can unilaterally opt out of it. Roster limits are similarly governed. Okay, great comment, great comment. There has been reports, I forget the lawyer's name, who was part of that settlement, did indicate that, number one, a new cap can be part of that settlement if all Power 4 conferences and the PAC conference come together and have a general agreement on that we're going to raise the cap, or have a new cap number, or have a new algorithm, a new math that would set the cap number. Also, the same lawyer indicated something to the effect, and I'm paraphrasing, we will have to discuss it, but when he was asked about a conference designing their own cap number, the lawyer did say something to the effect of, if it does not inhibit the ability of the student athletes to make money, like if you're raising the cap as an individual conference, you're not really doing harm to the settlement. You are not doing harm to the student athlete. So there did seem to be some language from the House lawyer in that class action lawsuit that there might be room for these conferences to set their own cap. We're going to find that out. But that's what these conferences are planning on. Or they're going to have an agreement among each other that they're going to raise the cap. Okay. 67% says yes. LSU is going to back down from the Southeastern Conference within the next 72 hours. I would have voted no. I would have been with the minority on that. I would have been with the 33% of the voters. Ross Dellinger said the cap would be around $50 million. Well, there was a lot of numbers being thrown around. Yes, in the Protect the College Sports Act, sure. It was 48 million. Yeah, around 50 million. But if the Protect the College Sports Act doesn't pass, then, because again, that 48 million was sort of everybody agreeing on that number to try to get that bill passed. But if you're not going to have a bill pass, if the conferences are going to have more autonomy, if they can set a number that does not inhibit or run afoul on the House settlement on the class action lawsuit, they might come up with a different number. The Pac-12 did lose autonomy, but it's interesting because they keep bringing up the Pac-12 in regards to the House settlement that they would have to agree. But the Pac-12 is not the Pac-12. So you may be right. Maybe it's just those 4 power conferences that only those 4 would have to agree to move up the number. I'll look into that. Thank you, John Famler. Kenneth Maynard says the LSU will fold like an accordion. Yogi Buck says, of course they're going to back down. Didn't the president vote for the Sankey rule? He did. He did vote for the Sankey rule. However, right here, it was, but today, the SEC president voted today to confirm the penalties in the legislation involving the banning of NFL players. It ended up being a 15-0 vote. LSU abstained today. So the vote was 15-0. All right, we're going to open up the phone lines. You can talk about anything in college football that your heart desires. 763-260-1333. 763-260-1333. Come on aboard, get on the phone, give us a call. Tell me how nervous you are about your week 0 or your week 1 football game. Let me know what you're thinking. I want to thank Bruce Harris, Moen, Kenneth Maynard, Eva Badger, Bill G, and Christopher Hooter for your generosity, helping us keep the lights on and grow the channel. Thank you very much. Do not be afraid to give us a call. Just checking if there was any live breaking news. Drake Lindsay, Gophers quarterback, was found guilty Wednesday of being a minor in possession of a fake ID. We talked about this when it happened. This is a settlement of his May arrest in hometown. He's not expected to miss playing time at the start of his 2026 season. He had a fake ID with him. I scolded him here at live on our show. He was not drunk. He was not driving. But he did have a fake ID on him. You can't do that if you want to be a starting quarterback making over $1 million. Hopefully he's learned a lesson. LSU President Rouse is not commenting when asked about the penalty that the SEC voted on for a 15-0 vote. Neither is Louisiana Governor Jeff Landry's office. They're not commenting either. Mississippi tight end Daquan Wright and Ole Miss defensive tackle Xavier Harris and Notre Dame defensive end all looking to join the LSU Tigers. No comment so far. Okay. New Life is always a little nervous about week 1. Less worried with Sig running things. What about your running back there, that Martin? The big bulldozer that you've got that people are really excited about. Indiana is absolutely loaded. Absolutely. On both lines of scrimmage. But yeah, anything can happen, I guess. You don't want the injuries to occur. Rod Nix, the cap will be compromised near the $35 million figure, I think. Let's see here. BYU football believes that LSU challenges the SEC. That's what I'm on that end. Now, the longer this goes, if it goes into this evening without a comment, I would think there's more and more of a chance that LSU challenges the SEC. I could be dead wrong, but it would be easier to acquiesce early on here. Like, you don't really, like, if the president and if LSU's president and the governor are sitting down and going, okay, all right, we pay these players, we'll talk to them. They can sue the SEC if they want, but we're going to have to make a comment that we're going to have to, we don't agree, but because we want the health of the SEC, we want to be self-governance, we're going to come out the heroes in this. LSU, we're going to be the ones to set the example. If it was going to be that message, I thought that would already been displayed already today. In my opinion, the more time goes on, the more that the governor and the president and the boosters are probably going, no, this will not abide. This will not abide. And then they're trying to figure out how to go after this. How to say, you can't do these to these players. They did not have an option. They did not, and they should have had an option. I mean, LSU does have some good arguments to make. So I feel the more and more and more they don't put out a comment, I think the bigger the chance they're going to fight this somehow, some way. I could be completely wrong. It could be completely flipped than what I just said. Kobe Martin. Yeah. Well, yeah, I mean, Turbo Richard has... I talked about Turbo Richard 3 years ago, or at least 2 years ago, on Boston College. And then he went to Florida State. I mean, he's not a superstar, but he's got juice. He's going to do good for Indiana. Another one of these guys that Signetti picks up, and it's like, no duh. This guy can play. But Kobe Martin he's got a chance. He's got a chance. He's got a chance. He has a chance to be a superstar. Kind of like Usman Kroma for Florida State. Seminoles have got other guys, but if they're going to have a superstar, it's going to be Kroma. I don't know if Kroma is going to be a superstar this year. I want him to get the rock early, middle, and late against New Mexico State. And Kobe Martin's got a chance to be the superstar. Yogi Buck, Florida State and New Mexico State will draw more viewers on the CW than North Carolina State and Virginia. That very well could be true. It might be, I might be wrong. It might be dependent, though, on if that North Carolina State-Virginia game is competitive and Florida State, New Mexico State is not. I do agree, though, both games are competitive. The Florida State game is going to get more viewership. And if both games are a blowout, Florida State's going to get more viewership. But if Florida State, New Mexico State is a blowout, which it should be, and North Carolina State and Virginia is competitive, which it should be, I think the numbers are going to be relatively close. And again, I could be completely wrong, Yogi Buck. You remind me on Monday how wrong I am or was, or is, or will be. All right, don't look like anybody's calling. We got Jacoba Cat $2 holla. Why won't the SEC centralize powers similar to the Big Ten? I'm not quite sure what that question is. I think they're both quite similar in that they both are going to be. I think the SEC has done that. I don't think there's really any. Are you talking about taking on more of your power when it comes to eligibility rules, transfer rules, cap? I think the SEC is probably even a little bit more out of ahead than the Big Ten. This is the SEC taking power over this ruling. So I appreciate the $2 holler, Jacoby Cap, but I think the SEC is actually doing what you're asking why they won't do it. I think they are doing it in this case. Sometimes when you take the power, it doesn't look pretty because one school might not agree to the ruling, to the vote. And that's what's happening here. And it's not going to be the last time. No way is this going to be the last time we have a story like this. We're going to look back fondly on the days of the Red Raiders and Brendan Sorsby and LSU, and this we're going to look back and look, these were the good old days, because there's going to be battles within these conferences over rules within the conference and over the enforcement. Some schools are going to be like, our commissioner, our president, council, our enforcement arm, whatever that's going to be called, they're not doing this fairly. We are getting picked on. Us at Alabama are getting picked on way more than the Auburn people. And then you're going to have Michigan State going, we're getting picked on way more than Michigan people. Like, we're going to have all sorts of this stuff happening. So buckle up and brace for impact. Thank you, Jacoby Cat. Appreciate it. $5 holla, the Iowa Hawkeye. Ross Dellinger said on his Yahoo pod that the Big Ten Commish has more emergency powers. Okay. Thank you. Yes, he does. Now, on this, if you notice, the SEC presidents and chancellors have given Ross Dellinger quite the bandwidth of power. They've given him a lot of power to enact fines. So in this one, now again, if the SEC starts going into the silo, and I think they will if the PCSA doesn't pass, and the Big Ten goes in the silo, their bylaws are going to change. They're going to have an enforcement arm. Their commissioners are probably going to become more powerful. Decisions are going to have to be made quickly. The appeal process has to be written down. The appeal process has to be done quickly. Things are going to change drastically within these conferences. They're going to have to act quickly. Emergency powers, yes, you're absolutely correct, Jacoby Cat. The Big Ten, and that was talked about during the Michigan thing. How Delaney, Kevin Warren, and Petiti had more emergency powers than Slive and the rest of the SEC commissioners leading up to Sankey. But that is probably already starting to change within the SEC. Thank you for the $5 holler, Jacoby Cat. Appreciate the generosity. And I appreciate you bringing this up. Thank you so very much, sir. Kennedy Manor, NC State, Virginia will get good ratings. People are starving for college football and pickings are slim. this weekend. Now, I picked North Carolina State to cover. I'm looking at this game. This might be the tortoise and the hare, right? The Wolfpack is the hare, and the Cavaliers are the tortoise. We might be getting a game in which C.J. Bailey comes out and just starts firing. He looks fantastic. He's one of the best quarterbacks in the country. I had him down as the second best quarterback in the ACC. Again, those are my picks against the spread. Got North Carolina State covering. But like I said earlier on this show, Virginia's got a left tackle that's a fifth-year senior, a left guard that's a sixth-year senior, a center that's a seventh-year senior, a right guard that is a sixth-year senior, and a right tackle that's a fifth-year senior, and a tight end. No, I got that wrong. A left tackle that's a fifth-year senior, a left guard that's a sixth-year senior, a center that's a seventh-year senior, a right guard that's a sixth-year senior, and a right tackle that's a seventh-year senior, and their tight end is a fifth-year senior. So Virginia on the offensive line got a bunch of grown men. They're going to be very, very old. There's going to be a big age gap in experience between Virginia's offensive line and North Carolina State's defensive line. And Tony Elliott's going to run the ball. With the quarterback, they're going to run.
From
Tristan 5.
Tristan 5, the floor is yours. How you doing, sir?
I'm fine, Greg. It's good to hear you today.
Good to hear you too, sir. I'm glad someone called in.
Oh, yeah. Well, listen, I have a question about this LSU situation.
Yes.
So they're wanting to bring in some of these players that are not going to make it in the NFL, right? And then the position of the conference is that they don't want them, right? Like the conference is saying, hey, we don't want to bring back players from the NFL, right? So so my question is, if the conference is saying that, then doesn't that mean, it may not mean that the president of LSU was in favor of that rule, or does it mean that?
That 16-0 vote?
Yeah,
I don't know.
That's what I thought.
It was 16-0, but it was 15-0 on the penalties.
Oh.
Yeah, okay, that was reported today by Pete Thamel. Again, let me put it up on the screen for those who've just joined us. Today, and I got up on the screen, Tristan, Pete Thamel, sources in the formal SEC president's vote today, Wednesday, to confirm the penalties in the legislation involving the banning of NFL players. There ended up being a 15-0 vote. LSU abstained from voting.
Okay. That makes a little more sense.
Yeah.
Yeah, I didn't realize that. Because to me, if I was sitting there thinking to myself, well, look, if every president's in favor of this rule, then shouldn't the president of LSU just walk down the hall and talk to whoever he needs to talk to and put an end to this? But now they're saying no to the penalties. And so, Greg, this gets down to what I had told you earlier, and I think a lot of people are saying this. The SEC doesn't have the authority to penalize a member, in my opinion. It's the same problem that the NCAA has.
Well, I disagree on that.
Okay, so I would say that, and I did say in a previous call, that they can kick someone out of the conference. Right? Now, I agree that they can do that.
Didn't the Big Ten fine Michigan? I think they fined them.
Okay.
I think they did. I could be wrong. I'll look back into it. Somebody Google. I think that was part of it. I could be wrong.
Okay, well, I'm thinking that, the traditional penalties that you have in something like this is like a fine or loss of scholarships or like a postseason ban for bowl games and stuff. And I don't know that if the SEC attempted to do that, it seems like LSU could just say, we're not going to go along with that. That's my problem with all this.
Well,
the
it's
conference
also
doesn't have the legal authority.
I don't have the problem with the legal authority part of it. That's just me. I mean, if you enter into a private nonprofit association and they've got it spelled out, then they do have the legal authority to fine, in my opinion. But I think one of the better arguments that LSU has here is all this is ex post facto. Like, it's happening after. Like, LSU was in the midst of doing this, right? The players have agreed. They probably signed an NIL deal. And you're passing laws and rules after the fact that LSU has engaged in this process. And you're putting down penalties. Like, this is happening after the fact. Like, maybe you can do this after this. That should be the rule. Maybe that's what LSU's like. We are voting that this should be the rule going forward. But because we're in the midst of all this, you can't put the rule on us now. You can't,
Yeah.
That's what I think LSU's about to say. But I could be so far off here. But I think more time goes, Tristan. I think that is where we're going to end up. Go ahead.
Okay. Yeah. By the way, the way you just articulated it, that saying that might be LSU's position, I tend to agree with that, by the way. If there was no rule when they did this, and look, everyone's looking for a competitive edge, right? And especially, now breaking rules is one thing, but if there wasn't a rule against this, then how can you try and penalize LSU? I just think that that's wrong. I think that LSU's position on this is correct, even though I don't like what they did. I think the position is correct. If there was no explicit rule against what they did, why are you trying to penalize them? Right? So that's how I feel about it. I hate the fact that they did this, but I guess this needs to be tested. It might as well be tested now, right, over this. I feel like the conference, I hear what you're saying, because Michigan State got penalized with a fine, okay?
I think so.
But they agreed to it. Like, they went along with it. They didn't fight it. What happens if they fight it?
Well, I mean...
What if they say, no, we disagree. You can't do that to us.
Well, maybe they will. But then again, a conference just can't back down because someone's going to fight. At some point, right, if you want to be governed by a conference, you got to go with the conference rules at some point, right?
Oh, I agree. But
now, let me show you something. Tristan,
Okay.
Let me show you something here.
Okay.
Hold on. We've got a little bit of breaking news. We do have a comment from the governor of Louisiana. Hold on, everybody. We do have a comment. Amanda Krisovich, Front Office Sports, reporting I asked Louisiana Governor Jeff Landry's office for his perspective on the pending battle between LSU and the SEC. His full statement, quote, "This whole thing is ridiculous. Don't hate the player, hate the game. I've been saying for a year that college sports need to be fixed. The NCAA could have done it. No, they couldn't. Congress could have done it. Well, neither did. Now the SEC is creating a legal mess over athletes it told were out of eligibility, only to change the rules afterward. The SEC accepted the court's decision on Diego Pavia and Trinidad Chambliss. Why is this different? You can't tell athletes their college careers are over, watch them move on, change the rules later, and then punish them for not predicting the future." So, I think that goes to what Tristan was saying and I was saying. This thing's not over. And I don't think LSU is going to back down in the next 72 hours. Like the PATC Einsteins voted, 62% of you voted said they would back down in the next 72 hours. I don't think they are. Go ahead, Tristan.
Well, yeah, it sounds like what you're saying is correct. The longer it goes without some kind of, backing down statement or like, okay, we agree or whatever. If they don't do that, the longer it goes on, it seems like there will be some kind of court proceedings, I guess. And I hate that it's happening, but at the same time, it needs to happen.
Yeah.
Right? If we're going to have conferences attempting to enforce rules, and that is what the Supreme Court was saying in some of their decisions,
yeah,
they were saying the conferences are the logical entities to enforce the rules. Maybe the SEC can pull this off, but it's going to be messy.
We got more breaking news. Can you hold on, Tristan?
Sure.
More breaking news. Pete Thamel of ESPN is reporting sources. The Big 12 athletic directors have agreed to ban professionals from returning to the Big 12 schools in all sports. This is pending approval tonight. The ADs were unanimous in their support. This follows in line with similar concepts of the Big Ten, SEC, ACC's waiting to be formalized. So basically, what it's coming down to is LSU versus all, not just the SEC, which is what's important to LSU. But every school in every Power 4 conference is supporting this rule. So.
Okay. Well, all right. So let me say this: if the SEC tries to do like a fine, then they can do it just by withholding that revenue from the media payout.
Mm-hmm.
Right. So there is that. Now, of course, LSU may challenge that in court. I don't know what happens at that point if they do. But I don't see how the SEC could force them to not have scholarships. If they said, okay, you're going to lose 4 scholarships as a penalty. Okay, and we've seen that before. That's one of the things the NCAA used to do. How do they enforce that if LSU says, no, we're not doing that. We're going to keep our scholarships? How do they enforce it? I guess everything just comes down to a monetary penalty. It has to only come down to that because that's the only thing the conference.
Yeah, because the conference is the one that distributes the media money.
Right.
Through what the bylaw says. So if there's a bylaw that penalizes a school, then a certain amount of money, then that certain amount of money is withheld from the school through the conference. The conference is the one that distributes all that media money. So I think that's the only way. Yep.
Yeah. So I unfortunately, I hate to say this, I side with LSU on the issue only because they weren't breaking the rule at the time they did it.
Mm-hmm.
So I agree with that principle, but I don't like the idea of bringing players back. But of course this question had to come up because all the upheaval.
Yeah.
Right? There's always going to be more upheaval until like there's a definitive set of rules that governs all this. And Greg, the issues that seem to be happening here recently seem to indicate to me that the NFL is being impacted by all this.
Yes.
And I'm wondering if we ever get a comprehensive set of rules or laws governing all this stuff, if it might necessitate having like professional sports included in the laws, saying that you have to do this and you can't do that with these college athletes, and then the same thing goes in the opposite direction. You know, like they might say, the law might actually say one day, hey, once a player leaves college, they can't go back. You know, regardless if there's any eligibility left. But it seems like there's spillover now, and there's issues that are affecting both. And so I just find it interesting that the more that college is becoming closer to the NFL, some of the things that are happening now are involving the NFL or impacting the NFL.
Yeah.
So this is all it's all interesting. It's, I guess, kind of a soap opera, but
yeah,
I just can't wait to see some good games.
yeah. We're gonna have. I think we'll have a couple of good games this weekend.
Yeah, that's cool. Well, Greg, that's all I had for you.
All right.
You keep up the good work, and I'll talk to you later.
I appreciate it, sir. Great call, Tristan. Thank you so very much. Beautiful. Jacoba Cat, Lane Kiffin scandals are the most obnoxious scandals. They're consistent and within the rules, just enough to prevent a total downfall and exile from college football. Look, other coaches did this. Other coaches were looking to do this. So I don't think Lane Kiffin is the unique bird in this situation as some are making him out to be. Now, again, LSU, you heard what the governor said. The governor may be calling all the shots here. The president, the LSU president, may not be. So there are forces way beyond Lane Kiffin that seem to want this battle, and they think they are in the right. That the rule was changed midstream on LSU. That a court gave Trinidad Chambliss the ability to play another year, and the court looks like they might be given the ability for these players to play another year. But yet this is the time that the SEC pulls up the drawbridge and don't let these guys in. There are parts of this argument that I believe LSU has very good, viable arguments to be made. And it's like the poison tree, right? The fruit of the poison tree. In my opinion, these 2022 class should have been allowed the option to play that fifth year. If they had played 4 full years, they should have been able to play this year. So that would have entitled these gentlemen the option to whether they can, should they file for the NFL, should they go in the NFL draft, or and then go on to get into a preseason game like some of these guys did. Or they should have had the option to stay in college and play another year. Because if they would have had that option, some of them, maybe all of them, would have taken that option. Now, here's the other thing. If they would have taken that option, they wouldn't be playing for LSU. If they would have had that option, and if they would have taken that option, they would not have been able to transfer to LSU. So these guys would not be LSU Tigers in the first place. But the governor doesn't bring that up. So There's arguments to be made back and forth. It's quite complicated. I don't think this is simple as the Brendan Sorsby situation. That thing was cut dry from the very beginning. This one's more complicated, in my opinion. In my opinion. Thank you for the $5 holler, Jacoby Cat. Appreciate it. Appreciate it very much. All your support, Mr. Hawkeye. Which G6 programs will get these pro players? MAC Action. Again, not all the G6 conferences have ruled against this yet. I think the Pac-12 is struggling with this. The last time I read a report on it. But the Power 4 conferences all seem to have made their decision. How much NIL money can one of these players get for playing on Eastern Michigan, Western Michigan in the MAC? Probably not all that much. Jose says, bylaws agreed upon by all members and punishment agreed upon by all members, or they can leave said conference. And that's the biggest difference between this story and the Brendan Sorsby story. It was already in the Big 12 bylaws that the Big 12 could suspend a player who have knowingly gambled on their sport. That was already in the Big 12 bylaw. I don't know if all this is being added to the SEC bylaw right now. If this was in the bylaw, that a WNBA player could not come back and play on the LSU Tigers, on the Alabama women's basketball program. Remember, a G6 player, one of those G programs in the NBA came back and played for Alabama for a little bit, right? He was a professional player. Basketball. Anyways, it is complicated, in my opinion, and we're going to cover this as long as we need to. I appreciate you all joining us. I really do. I do want to thank those, once again, who have supported our program through a donation, helping us keep the lights on and grow the channel. Thank you very much. Bruce Harris, Moen, Kenneth Maynard, thank you, sir. Evil Badger, thank you very much. Bill G, massive gift membership. Thank you, Bill G. Christopher Hooter, thank you so very much. Purple and Gold. Jacoby Cat, thank you. I appreciate all of your support today, Jacoby Cat. Thank you for the phone call, Tristan. We only got one phone call in. People did not want to call in tonight. Maybe they are afraid of the transition from Greg the Cooler to Greg the Gold. Maybe y'all are now a little bit intimidated because my picks this week are going to sizzle. They're not going to freeze. They're going to sizzle. Week 0. I think you've all come to that realization. Jacoby Cat, PATC bylaw says Greg will always be called. There is no bylaw on that. Absolutely no. Jose, I wanted to call, but my phone is dying. Really good excuse, Jose. Really good excuse. All right, I appreciate you all joining us. Get ready for Thursday, August 27th. Again, if there is breaking news later on tonight on this story or whatever other story, there is an opportunity that I could come on later on tonight. So again, make sure you subscribe. Get yourself notified. Ring the notification bell. If there is breaking news from LSU side of the fence on this, their argument, I will be coming on live to carry this later on tonight. So buckle up, brace for impact. If not tonight, tomorrow. Until next time, from all of us at PATC to all of you, please you all take great care of each other. And as always, God, family,